You're in bed, lights off. You reach for your phone to check one last thing, and the second that screen lights up, pure white blast. You squint, you wince, your pupils scream. So you do what roughly 82% of smartphone users have done. You switch to dark mode. Light text on a dark background, instant relief. But here's what's strange. The very first computer screens, back in the 1940s, were already dark. Glowing green text on a CRT monitor, a black void. Dark mode wasn't a feature, it was the only option. So if screens started dark, why did they go white for 40 years, and why did we all just switch them back? Today we're untangling the weird, full-circle story of dark mode right here on That's Why. To understand why screens turned white, you have to go to Palo Alto in the 1970s. Xerox had a problem. They built these incredible machines, computers, but nobody outside a research lab wanted to use them. The interfaces were walls of text on black glass, cold, intimidating. So a team at Xerox PARC, led by a researcher named Alan Kay, had an idea. What if the screen looked like a desk? Papers you could stack, folders you could open, a trash can in the corner. And since paper is white and ink is dark, the screen should be too. In 1984, Apple put that idea into the Macintosh, and it stuck. Suddenly, computers felt like something a secretary or an accountant could use, not just an engineer. White backgrounds became the default, and they stayed the default for 4 decades. But one group never bought it: programmers. The people building the software everyone else used, they kept their screens dark. Not out of nostalgia, out of survival. When you're staring at code for 10 hours straight, a bright white screen feels like staring into a flashlight. Dark backgrounds with coloured syntax highlighting were easier to scan, easier to endure. By 2020, over 91% of developers were coding in dark mode. They'd quietly kept the aesthetic alive for decades before your phone gave you the option. So, what finally pushed dark mode into the mainstream? One word: OLED, or AMOLED on Samsung phones. Old screens, LCDs, work like a stained glass window. There's a backlight behind the whole panel, always on, shining through coloured filters. Doesn't matter if the image is white or black, the backlight burns the same power either way. But OLED screens work completely differently. Each tiny pixel makes its own light, and when a pixel needs to show black, it just turns off. No light, no power, nothing. Think of it like the difference between dimming every lamp in your house versus flipping off the ones you don't need. Once phones started shipping with OLED, Samsung Galaxy, iPhone X in 2017, dark mode suddenly had a real measurable advantage. Google tested it and found that YouTube in dark mode used up to 60% less display power at max brightness on their Pixel phone. That's not a preference anymore, that's engineering. But here's where it gets interesting. At Google's 2018 Android Dev Summit, Google did something unusual. They admitted they'd been wrong. For 4 years, their own material design guidelines had told every developer to use white backgrounds, bright, clean, paper-like. And now, Google's on stage proving that their own design philosophy had been draining batteries on every OLED phone on the planet. Within a year, Apple launched dark mode in iOS 13. Google launched it in Android 10, and a new web standard called Prefers Color Scheme let websites detect your preference automatically. All in 2019. Dark mode didn't trickle into the mainstream, it arrived from every direction at once. And here's something most people don't expect. The science says dark mode probably isn't better for your eyes. Researchers Piepenbrock and colleagues at the University of Dusseldorf tested both young and older adults on reading accuracy. Light mode won across the board. A separate MIT study found the same. Even at night, people read more accurately on light backgrounds. About half the population has some degree of astigmatism, and for those people, dark mode can actually make text harder to read. Your pupils open wider in the dark, and that slight lens irregularity creates a glow around light text, a blurring called halation. And no, it's not about blue light. That's a different story, separate from features like Apple's Night Shift, which reduces blue light. So the thing millions of people adopted for eye comfort may not actually help their eyes at all. What it helps is their battery and how it feels. So the next time your phone lights up in the dark with that soft, dim glow instead of a blinding white flash, you're looking at a full circle. A design born from hardware limitations in the 1940s, buried by a paper metaphor in the 1980s, kept alive by programmers for 40 years, and resurrected not by nostalgia, but because the screens finally caught up to what the pixels could do. If this one surprised you, a like really helps the channel. And if you've got a strong take on dark mode versus light mode, drop it in the comments. I already know this one is going to get heated. Thanks for watching, that's why, and I'll catch you in the next one.